So I want to say this straight out of the box, right at the beginning of this video. The PS5 Pro, it's a console that I cannot really recommend. And don't get me wrong, I love this thing, it's a powerful device, but especially since you already had this, I don't really think this is worth it. So as you can see, I haven't even done a review video for the PS5 Pro because I was struggling a bit if I should make it or not, because I didn't really feel that this is so much different if you compare it with the original PS5. But I played around with it for more than 1 month now. I had got this since day one, and I do have some thoughts. And I want to keep in mind that this isn't a side-by-side comparison video, because I don't want to put frames on the screen for both of these consoles and to compare graphics side by side. This is just an honest opinion for a day-to-day PlayStation first type of gamer. These are just my honest impressions, and I wanted to share them with you because this may help you out deciding if you should get the PS5 Pro or if you should stick or get the original one. Now, since I got this out of the way, I do want to say that I actually love this device, but right after I shoot this video, this will go back. I know it's a strange thing to say, but for the price, I don't really think it's worth it, and I think that's the biggest downside for this console. If you remember the PS4 Pro, I think the upgrades were more noticeable back then compared to these two now, and the price hike wasn't that big either. So now getting this for this price, especially here in Europe, I really don't think it's worth it. 90% of the time, you will not even notice the improvements that this console has. First of all, you need a really good monitor or a TV, and I do have that in my home. I have an LG OLED TV, 120 Hz. So the difference is, if I look for them, then I'll definitely see them. But most I know that do not even have a proper TV to really benefit from the power of the PS5 Pro. If a PlayStation is your only console, if you have the proper TV, and if you want to spend that extra buck, then definitely get this one because it's the latest and more powerful. But overall, 90% of the time, maybe even more than that, you will not even notice. And I really did an experiment with a couple of my friends. I gave them the controller, play a couple of games. I didn't mention which of these consoles were powered on, and more time than not, they were actually choosing the PS5. But they did mention that only if they have to choose, then they'll go with one or the other, but most of the time they will not even notice the difference. And of course, there are games for which you will notice more than others. The thing that stuck with me ever since I got this was that if you are truly looking for the difference between these two consoles, then this is definitely not worth it. So that's the main thing. Having this for this price, not even having a disc unit, and that might not be the case for you, but for me, I do have the disc version over here because I am also a small collector, especially for the PlayStation exclusives. I really like to have them physically. And while I was trying to think about what I should say in this video, I was thinking about the benefits but also the negatives about this console, and more time than not, the negatives were there for the PS5 Pro. First of all, I already mentioned the price, then the lack of the disc unit, which also has to be paid separately. That's another thing. Not adding a vertical stand like we do have with the original one, but that's also the case for the slim model, so that was something that we expected, but again, something to add to the price. Then also about the design that I mentioned in my unboxing video, I do think that the plastic in the original model, it's actually better than the PS5 Pro, so another negative aspect for me. Maybe not something that is applicable for most of you, and not even for me, but if you're the type that bought different plates for the original model, then these are not compatible, of course. And the weirdest thing is that they're not even compatible with the PS5 Slim model. I really don't know why. That's a really strange decision from Sony, because we don't even have proper plates for the Pro so far. So if you have it, then you'll have to wait to buy different ones. But in the end, it all comes to impressions. And as I said, you really need the proper TV in order to benefit the power of the PS5 Pro. And actually, this is quite similar for the regular PS5, because that console is still powerful enough to get you impressive resolution. But if you are using an old TV, then that will definitely not be noticeable. And I do have over here an LG OLED TV. This is the B4. So it's not the highest graded one, but it's still really good and powerful enough to take advantage of the PS5 Pro performance. Now, visuals are stunning, and games like Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered are the type of games that will get you really impressive performance, but especially graphics. And as I said before, this all comes to the developers and how well they are redoing these games specifically for the PS5 Pro. Now, Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered is a game that came out recently, and it's one of those that fully take advantage of the performance of the PS5 Pro. And as you can see, this does have a couple of different features in the settings, so you can play around and choose the one that best suits you. And other games even have more settings than that. And if you really are looking for differences between these modes, then you'll definitely notice them. As you can see, performance mode comparing to the resolution one, the frames are definitely higher, and you will notice the stuttering a bit when you're moving around. But then again, this all comes down to impressions. And if you are the type of gamer that truly looks for the smallest details, then you'll definitely notice. And to be fair, there are a couple of games out already that benefit from the performance of the PS5 Pro. So developers are trying to benefit from it and upgrading their games. And the list is quite long and it's growing day by day. And for me, just because I know that I'm playing on the PS5 Pro, then the differences are definitely there. But most of the time, you will not even care about that. And I don't know how to stress this enough, that the PS5 is still more than capable of taking advantage of these graphics. Sony is doing some weird things when it comes to their hardware specifically. You know the history, like we had the PS Vita, then the PSVR, now the PSVR 2. So they have a history with these kind of things. But the good thing is that we do have options, and for us gamers is a really good thing, because if a device is out there, that doesn't mean that we have to get it. And if it's not for you, then that's fine, but this may be for other people, and you shouldn't be upset why that device exists. And you even remember the PS Portal fiasco, that everyone complained why this exists, and I know a lot of people, myself included, that still use that device almost daily, because in the end it's something that we enjoy playing on. We found a specific use case for it, and that's amazing. If it's not for you, then that's fine. Just don't complain why these kind of devices exist on the market. And speaking about graphics and performance, while most of these games that have upgrades for the PS5 Pro, if you tweak it a bit, then you will maybe see the difference, but I think 8 times out of 10 you will notice them just because you knew you make those changes. But even so, for the PS5, initially we had for some of the games 2 modes like performance and fidelity, so you can switch between graphics and frames. But with the PS5 Pro, this actually extends a bit the range, so instead of those 2, for most of the games you'll have even 4 or 5 game modes, so you can switch between more frames, better graphics, or something in the middle. So that part is definitely an upgrade comparing with the PS5, but I think that beats the whole purpose of owning a console, because a lot of people will buy a console just for the ease of use. You just plug it in and it works, so having these extra things that you have to do, for most of you, I know that will be a burden. If you do want to make all these kind of changes, then you can just get a PC and you can tweak it as much as you like. In the end, what do we actually get for this price increase? So first of all, of course, the performance. But in the price of this console, keep in mind that you actually get more storage. So this has 2 terabytes compared to the original 1 terabyte, which was actually less than 700 megabytes, more than double the storage with the PS5 Pro. And this is actually something that you couldn't get for the original console. So that can motivate a bit the price hike, even with this one, because I downloaded a bunch of different games, especially since I don't have the disk drive. I really couldn't reach the limit of that 2 terabytes. I know that you can, but again, this is a really good improvement. And if you are talking about games, as I said, there are a couple out there for which we already got upgrades, and for those you might definitely notice the difference. But for now, there are just a couple, and one of them is F124. For that one, you actually even get 8K, and I do believe there are a couple of more. Keep in mind that just the other day we had the Game Awards, where, by the way, Astro Bot, a PS5 exclusive, just won Game of the Year, so kudos for that. But we did get a couple of new announcements, some amazing titles, so 2025 might be a great year, because we haven't had that in a while, especially since next year we should expect GTA 6, so we might get some improvements on the PS5 Pro. But I'm really curious if that will be the case, especially comparing with the original PS5. Me personally, I don't think that the upgrades will be huge comparing these two consoles, but we definitely get some improvements for the PS5 Pro. But GTA 6 is a game that I'm really looking forward to. But besides GTA 6, we'll have a lot more games. We have the new Mafia game that was just announced. We got the new Naughty Dog game, which I'm really curious because it is Naughty Dog and they do make amazing titles. We have Assassin's Creed Shadows, which I know the debate is quite huge right now, but I'm still curious if Ubisoft will do something specific for the PS5 Pro. And there are so many other games for which I do believe that the developers might come up with an upgrade for the PS5 Pro. But that's the thing, and if history taught us well, depending on the developers to make a specific title for one of these consoles, then you might be out of luck. Now, this isn't a different console by any means, but they will still have to do some extra work for that game to work better on the PS5 Pro. And if the developer thinks that the upgrade is not worth it just to bring a couple of more frames on top of the original one, or just a tiny bit of graphic improvement, then I think that most of the developers will not go ahead and do that, just because their time and money is not worth it just to bring that game to the PS5 Pro. And that's my biggest concern. I do think that the first party PlayStation titles will have improvements when it comes to the PS5 Pro. But then again, those kind of titles always played a lot better on the PlayStation consoles. Sony developers know what to do for their consoles. So that's why I still believe that the PS5, the original one, will still have amazing looking first party titles. So as you can see, while I was rambling about these two consoles, I always came back to the thought that maybe this will not have enough to demonstrate, especially the price hike. And it's a struggle, I know, but in the end, it's up to you. If you just want the best, if you don't care about that extra money, and of course there are some of you out there that will think like that, and that's perfectly fine. And I think if the price was correct, then Sony would definitely sell more of these. But in the end, they already knew that most of us already have the PS5, so maybe this console was not made for us in order to upgrade. And I actually had a couple of friends that were waiting for this to come out just because they didn't get the PS5 in time, and they knew that this will come out in a couple of months, and they just wanted to see what the hype is all about. In the end, it's good for the consumer that we have more options, but Sony is dominating the market as we speak. I think they're doing this just because they know they can, and we really need someone like Microsoft to level up their game, because we don't want one dominant player in this market. Competition is great for us consumers, and while I am a PlayStation first type of gamer, I barely open my Xbox nowadays, I still want Microsoft to succeed and come up with something that can compete with Sony, because competition in the end is good for us. So while we're wrapping up this video, I just want to say again, keep in mind that while playing this console, if you have to look specifically for those upgrades in order to justify that price, then maybe the upgrades are not that great. So in the end, especially if you already have a PS5, at least for me personally, I would say just stick with it, because this is still an amazing console, and I'll be happy to go back to it, because this will actually go back tomorrow and I'll get my money back, maybe to buy some more expensive titles from Sony. So I believe that's it for now. Thank you for watching me rambling again about gaming. This is Silvio and this is the Tech Unravel, and I'll catch you in the next one.